Bloomberg's strategy here with this plan today of tacking to the left going to work for a guy who voted for George W. Bush as president, used to be a Republican, and, by the way, made his billions from Wall Street?
Yeah, I mean, Kelly, it's a great question. I mean, in some ways, though, given how far left the Democratic Party has gone, I mean, he almost had to do this, right? He's very much in lockstep with the Democratic Party on many other issues, and so this was one of the more remaining issues that he hadn't put out a plan. His plan, though, does resemble, again, kind of where the other Democratic candidates are. That's one. But two, and this is really important, what we're talking to our clients about, the reality is quite different from the rhetoric, particularly because many of these proposals would need to be subject to congressional approval, would need to go through both the House and the Senate. And on these issues in particular, the Congress, as of now at least, is much more moderate and is very far away from many of these plans. So you take the financial transaction tax, for instance, there is a similar bill in both the House and the Senate, but the House bill, for example, only has 27 co-sponsors of the 235 House Democrats. So it just shows you that the Democratic caucus on the Hill is quite far away from here. So while he may have had to do this politically from kind of a policy perspective, we're actually quite far away from ever seeing these things implemented.
Brian, that said, how close are we to seeing Bloomberg becoming the Democratic nominee here?
Well, we were on a briefing with his team just before we got on air today. And, they're saying that Bernie Sanders really is their biggest threat right now. They don't see Joe Biden going anywhere. We do have Nevada. We have South Carolina. I know those are kind of his safety nets for Joe Biden. But the Bloomberg campaign and Mike Bloomberg himself are keeping a very close eye on Bernie Sanders. And it's interesting that they had this briefing. They told us this on the same day they released this plan, right? The financial tax and all these other things that are supposed to rein in Wall Street, a la Bernie Sanders,
sure.
Elizabeth Warren. Clearly, Mike Bloomberg is trying to rein in some of these progressive voters. He does very well with moderate voters. There's no doubt about that. But when he's trying to do clearly is connect with the more progressive types, and he sees Bernie Sanders as a threat.
And, Libby, I wonder if he can do that successfully without seeming like a hypocrite or alienating people who he would then need to in order to win the general election.
Yeah, Kelly, I mean, I think that conventional wisdom around politics these days, I'm not sure holds so much. I mean, here you have a Republican, an independent mayor running for the Democratic nomination. So maybe a decade ago you could have said that credibly, but I think these days the conventional playbook of politics don't necessarily apply. So, we'll see. I think, again, what we're telling our clients, though, is even though the media is very focused on this being sort of a two-horse race with Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, we're very much in early days here, right? So let's see what happens on March 3rd in particular when 34% of the delegates are allocated. That will be a very important test for both, Bloomberg and Sanders. But let's see, how about Pete Buttigieg or even Vice President Biden? So I think it's too early to say that this is just a two-person race. And I also think back to Leanne Cooperman's comments at the beginning that a broker convention here does seem, much more likely than it has any point in modern history. And so that, from a market's perspective, could cause quite a bit of uncertainty, but again, seems more like an eventuality than it has in previous cycles.